I think it's really important to have a budget or, from your budget, you can build, and I'll explain the difference between a forecast and all that. But if you have a budget, you have a plan, right? It's like a
Mhm.
roadmap. I always explain this. Like if we were going to drive from here to California tomorrow, I wouldn't just get in my car and just be like, oh, which way's the sun? I guess I'm going west. I don't know. I would have a plan of I'm going to take this road to this road to that road. And then, going to stop this night, that night. I use this example because I just drove cross country with my son not that long ago. But that's exactly what I did, right? I used the same kind of mentality of this is where I want to be by this point in time, right? So the first day we got to Nashville, second day was Oklahoma, third day, whatever.
Yeah.
Same thing with your business plan. By end of Q1, I want to be here. By end of Q2 here, end of Q3 there, however you want to break that up. And instead of what road do you take, it's how much revenue do I need?
Mhm.
And to figure out how much revenue you need, figure out what your expenses are. And the hard thing about really first starting with this is that you're like, well, it's a brand new business. I have no expenses.
Mhm.
Okay, but you're also not working at your job anymore, or maybe reducing the job that you had to give this, more attention. So think about the expenses that you had that your employee pay covered, right? Was it your rent or your car payment or whatever? Those are now your operating expenses in your business because you're
Mhm.
going to want your business to cover that for you so you can leave that other job. Or if you have left that other job, you've got to pay for these things. And once you come up with those, that's what we kind of normally call like that would be your wages, right? Whatever I want this to cover, my rent, my car, my electricity, my, food, whatever it is, add all those up. And that's what your wage would be for the month. And then you need your revenue to cover that plus some, right? And you
Yeah.
want that we call it the delta, but the difference between your revenue and your expenses, you want that to grow bigger, more revenue, expenses stay the same so that you get bigger profit as you go. Because that way you can start investing back in your business. You can start hiring somebody. You can do whatever you need to do to help your business grow. So that's tip number one, is have that roadmap in place so you know where you're going. If you don't get there, figure out what you have to change to get back
Yeah.
on track. Or
Yeah.
what if you're taking this road and it's closed? Figure out another route,
Yeah.
right?
The interesting thing you're saying is that it's critical to have the budget and the plan because you can't get where you want to go if you don't know where you are. And it's like a tracking device, right? So it sets your intention for the future direction. And then you also go like, okay, did I meet that? And if I didn't, what do I need to adjust in order to meet it next quarter? Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yep.
When is a good time to start this? Like you're saying, because I heard you say before people start a business, they go, well, I don't have any expenses yet, but really they do because their houses or their overhead, whatever they're replacing from their income. So would you say start this budgeting plan immediately when people start a business and then revamp
Yes.
it every quarter?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, absolutely. Your expenses are what looks normal, what doesn't look normal. Look at things. Well, I guess that could be tip number two. Always look at things on a monthly basis so you can tell if something's going way up, way down. If your expenses go way down, holy cow, did I forget to pay something this month?
Yeah.
We've all caught that where you're like, oh wow, I have a lot of money in the bank. Oh shoot, I didn't pay for my car payment or whatever, right?
Yeah.
So always look at your trends on a month to month basis so you can see like your financial trends, so you can see where things are going way up or way down, or if they're just staying the course.
Yeah. Would you say when you're looking at those numbers, what are the most critical numbers to be looking at? Would you be looking, what do you have any insight there?
Um, it depends on your kind of business. If you have a business where you are making something, so you have your revenue and then you have your cost of goods for what it took to produce that, you're always going to want to look at your gross margin, which is the difference between those two, to make sure that, the things you're buying, your raw materials are not going up in price by a lot and you haven't adjusted your revenue. So that
Mm-hmm.
gross margin, if you're a service-based organization, then, just looking at top line revenue, looking at expenses just as a general, and then maybe, some key, like, whatever your biggest top three expenses are every month. just take a look at those and make sure that they're where you think they should be.
Okay. Yeah. I was thinking about it too as ROI. Like you're always looking at, is the money that I'm investing in bringing me a return on my investment? Otherwise, I think a lot of entrepreneurs waste a lot of money, especially at the beginning of business.
Yeah.
What would you
It's
say?
hard to figure that out though, because especially when it's like, oh, I'm going to do this, like spend all this money on this, whatever marketing or social media manager or whatever the heck it is. And you're like, I got nothing out of that.
Yeah.
And it takes a while for you to realize I got nothing out of that. And then it's sometimes really hard to pull back from it because it's a decision that you made and you're like, well, I gotta stick to it because you got to know when to cut bait. Yeah.
Yeah. What that's a great tip. What are some, when you're looking at your numbers and you're realizing you invested in something, I think of this as sunk cost fallacy, where you go, I already invested money, so I got to keep investing money in this thing, even though it's not actually working. When do you know to cut and run? Like what would you advise people on there?
I don't know. I wouldn't go more than like 3 months on something unless that, no, I have to build this up. It's a year-long process or something like that. But if it's, just regular run of the mill, I would not invest in something for more than, I mean, I've made that mistake too. I had a social media manager a while back and I had her for like 6 or 7 months before I realized that like, this is not working. And I look back at how much I spent and I was like, God, what an idiot. Like I'm an idiot, right? So we all do it. But if I had just taken my own advice and looked at it 3 months in, I would have been like, I'm not feeling like this is working.
And what you're saying here that's so important for everyone to take away is that if you're looking at your numbers on a monthly basis, you are building a relationship with your business and your money. And then you would know, okay, I'm in month 1, haven't yielded anything from this yet. Month 2, month 3, you're going like, hey, something either needs to change with the strategy and the marketing, or the marketing needs to go away, or this aspect. I think too, we waste a lot of money sometimes doing things we were told we should do, and too many things. I always share with people, narrow your focus to expand your freedom. And it's like, so we tend to focus on way too much, and it's like a scattered energy that gets put out there. And so if you can narrow it and make something really highly successful in a few small areas, even the idea of like, oh, you don't necessarily need to be on every single social media platform. Choose one, get really good at that, grow that, and then add on, And so it's this, I think there's this day and age, we have so many options. And so you got to get really strategic about your use of time. And part of what Dorothy is recommending here, looking at your numbers, helps you do that. That's why I think tracking is so important. And it's kind of boring. It feels boring when you're doing it. You're like, oh, really? I got to track my numbers. And I think people are scared of it a little bit too.
Yeah. But when you do find something, then you're like, oh, I would have known that if I hadn't looked at it. But you're right. I mean, I think so many people, I myself am guilty of this, when your balances are really low in your bank account, you don't want to look because it's embarrassing to you as a person, or you're afraid because you're like, oh God, and I think the same thing applies when you're a new business where you don't want to look because you're like, but you really need to, because the other benefit you get out of it is when you do grow and things do take off, you get to look back at it and go, I remember when.
Yeah.
I remember when my bank balance was $1,000 or whatever, now it's 50 or something, or 10. Celebrate the wins where you can.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Okay. Let's go for tip number 3. What do you have for us for tip number 3?
Always build in profit. So this is a profit first thing. I used to do profit first all the time. I don't now because there's too many bank accounts that they want you to have open. But when I was talking about earlier how I take that 5 to 10% and I put it away. But the other piece of that is the formula that they have in that is you learn in business school or accounting class or whatever, sales minus expenses equals profit, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's like the standard business thing. But if you flip it just a little bit and do sales minus profit equals expenses, it changes your mindset to go, I've got my sales, but I'm going to carve out what I want my bottom line to be first. Mm-hmm. And then everything left over, I get to spend on expenses. So if you're $10,000 a month and you want 5, well, guess what? You have 5 to spend. You don't have 7,500 to spend. You don't have 8 to spend. You have 5. Yeah. And I think it puts you in that spot where you automatically kind of like narrowing your focus, right? Opens up your freedom. So you narrow your focus to, I only have this much money, because the rest of it, that's my profit.